What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. We are in season 12. This is episode 6. We had a bye week last week. We had a little bit of a scheduling conflict with the guests, but they're going to be on next week, so that's not a big deal. But Kush Mody is here today. Dude, thank you for hanging out, man.
Dude, thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Yeah, man. So I always ask everybody as my first question the same
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and I'm very curious about yours. But what is your earliest musical memory?
Ooh, that is a great question. I got a couple, and I don't know which one comes first because when we're going that early, it's like, it, you know, it, it's hard to know what's a memory and what's like a story you told yourself over the years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but I got a couple good ones. I remember my mom plays piano, and she reads music. She doesn't really know, she doesn't like improvise or anything like that. So she's like a kind of a classically trained, you know, pianist. So I she had like some staff paper, and I remember I was probably like 5, maybe 4 years old, and I remember like scribbling notes that just nonsensical. I was basically just copying the shapes that she was reading. But I have a pretty clear memory of like writing, like imitating like what I was seeing her read, and just like making these like notes on staff paper, blank staff paper. And I remember her like playing the nonsense that I just wrote, and it was like a very like, wait, I can just do I could like make these symbols and make the sound come out. Like, that's
Right?
crazy. It was like a very like early like realization of like, oh, if I make these shapes, then this sound, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's like,
Mhm.
like the equivalent of today with like a kid with a DAW. It's like, oh, if I press these buttons, then the sound comes out, but the analog form of that. Uh, and I think like I feel like that was probably a pretty formative moment in terms of just like the power of like imagination and creativity, and you know like you can just, even if it's gibberish and nonsense, you don't know what you're doing, you just like make things happen. and my
Yeah.
mom and my mom was made a point to like do play it accurately, like even if it was like she didn't like make it up and be like, oh, look at this beautiful thing you wrote. It's like, no, this is what you wrote. Like, I'm playing the notes that you wrote.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did any of it turn out like where she was like, "What?" Like he just
No, I mean
randomly
it
put
was
these
it was all non it was all
gibberish?
gibberish. Like, it wasn't like I was some prodigy. I was basically just imitating like, these are shapes that I see, and I'm just, monkey see monkey do kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, oh, if I make these shapes, what happens? Like, oh, like she's reading that, and I want to do that, and I'd like scribble, kind of like I was just imitating, and then because she played the notes that I was playing, like I got the feedback of like, oh, this is what I just did. You know what I mean? None of this
Mhm.
was, none of this is like was intellectualized. It was all vibes. You know what I mean? But my
Yeah.
mom had the you know, foresight's not the right word, but she had the intuition, I guess, to like be like, you know what, I'm not just gonna make something up to make him feel good about like what he, I'm not gonna be like, yay, you look at this thing you wrote, it's beautiful. It's like she was like, yeah, this is, you know, whatever. It's like, that's what you wrote, man. I don't know what to tell you.
That's so great.
But I
Alright.
but I remember feeling very like, oh, okay, I'm connecting the dots. Like, I know how to do this now.
Literally, yeah.
Uh, exactly. So that's an early one. I mean, I also have like memories of like early concerts. I was obsessed with the drums. That was my first instrument. I have an early memory, probably like 4 years old, getting a Mickey Mouse like plastic drum set. And for all sorts of like pretty much all my earliest memories are music related. I've very fond memories of like driving around with my dad, listening to Pink Floyd. Like he was a big Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Genesis. Listen to Deep Purple, like a lot of like 70s and 80s rock, classic rock. So I have a lot of like early memories of that. I have a great early memory of an older cousin of mine when I was probably like 5 or 6. He had just acquired Nevermind on cassette, Nirvana's Nevermind, and I remember hearing the opening to In Bloom, and just being like, I'm obsessed with this. The drums like just I was like, it was like such a gooey, warm, like delicious feeling hearing that for the first time.
How old were you when you started playing the kit, like an actual kit?
Like 5 probably.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like, I mean, badly, obviously. And it was like you know, not a full kit. It was like probably a kick and a snare and a random, like, it was like a truncated kit. It wasn't like a nice kit. It was just like a very cheapy, plasticky kind of falling apart kind of kit. And it was like a kid's size kick, snare, and a cymbal, I think. And that was like my first kit when I was like 4 or 5. And then I over time I got an appreciation for slowly adding things and like making the like I didn't come from like a super wealthy family or anything. I didn't have, but my parents were very supportive, but it was also very like, hey, look, this is, it's your birthday, you're going to get something, but you're not going to get like the full thing. Like you might get, you know one symbol or something, you know what I mean? It's just like over time I'd like add like something, and I would learn to just make the most out of it. Like I had, for the longest time, I was playing on a drum set that was like held together with literal duct tape, and it was like, and I cherished the shit out of it, and I like played the fuck out of it. What, like, I was like, I don't care, just I want to play. I don't, I'll make it work. And I think that's led to kind of my uh yeah, I feel like I've always kind of had this like DIY kind of guerrilla energy to making art. And I think it probably comes from that, of like, I don't need the fancy shit. I'll make it work. You know what I mean? And it took me a while to like, I should probably upgrade. It's funny because I always think like, if I start a new hobby, I'm spending so much money. I'm like, I need the best thing. Like
I know.
I've never done that before. Why did I spend? But like with music, which is how I make money, it's my full-time job. I penny pinch like a motherfucker, because
Yeah.
I have this mentality of like, I, I'm resourceful and creative enough that I don't need to spend money. I can save money by just being good at what I'm doing. And it's like, that's backwards. Like, I need
Right.
to be investing in this thing and penny pinching on this, the side quest that I literally just started and probably will drop in 2 days. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, it's funny that you say you were adding things, because I'm like, I feel now you're probably back to kick, snare, hi-hat, cymbal. It's really funny because every time I see you playing a kit, it's very like shrunk down,
yeah.
bare bones, because you don't need a lot to do, what you do. So
I've never been a chopsy guy. I try sometimes, like I'll kind of go through phases where I'm like, I want to learn to play a little better, and like I'll study a little bit. I'll kind of go through like phases where I'm like shedding a little bit, but I just don't have time to like devote to drums. I mean, I'm not, drums was my first instrument, but pretty quickly I started playing guitar, and then bass, then keys, and then production and scoring and all these other things, and like the amount of time that I'm just playing drums or just playing one instrument, it just gets smaller and smaller. I don't have time to like dedicate to like shedding and practicing and like getting to the point of these other uh amazing players out there that's their real focus.
Hmm.
I'm keenly aware of like what it takes to like really be a master at any instrument. And I work with a lot of them, so I I'm just like, that's not for me. Like, I'm not gonna be a chops guy. I'm not gonna be like you know a, a a a player in that sense.
Well,
I play well enough that I can get my ideas out and I can communicate what I need to do. And I it's like I know what I need for to express myself. Um, but yeah, like I've never like felt the need to be impressive in that sense. It's more of like what is expressive. And if as long as it's expressive and like I feel like I can be like, yo, like feel me on this. Like this feels good, right?
right.
That's
Hmm.
that's all I care about. And then if it's like, oh cool, he did something flashy to kind of get your attention, like that's icing on the cake, but that's never really my
That's not the
intention.
goal. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's funny. I put you in that same category with like Otis McDonald, where you guys are
Dude,
both like
he's
just
a he,
slamming instrumentalists. And I find you interesting because both of you guys, but I find you very interesting because you guys are both like groove pocket guys, but I feel like your intention on the instrument is speaking how that instrument should be played. Whereas
hmm,
there are some multi instrumentalists like me, like guitar is my first instrument, but keys are my second. And I was at Berkeley the same time as you. We should talk about that too, but it's funny. I know, right? But
fuck,
I remember going into my lesson with Dave Lamina because I was a songwriting major and you could take another instrument if you wanted to. And I went in and I sat down. He's like, all right, play me something. And I played, and he was like, all right, stop. Stop playing like a guitar player. And I was like,
yeah,
ooh, that
yeah,
hurt, you know? So there's like this thing that you
interesting.
have where every instrument you go to, you're extremely authentic on each of those instruments.
Wow,
Um,
thank you. That means a lot. I haven't really thought of it that way, but that it makes sense. Like there is this sort of like idiomatic um element to each thing that you kind of have to like embody or absorb the spirit of each instrument. And uh, I know what you mean because it's something that I have to overcome with instruments that are really outside my range. For example, cello. I dabble with cello. I'm not That's the learning curve for orchestral instruments like cello, trumpet, it's just really steep. You really need to have a good teacher. Like it's not something you can just kind of pick up on the side. But I stubbornly, because I've picked up other instruments, like I'm like, how hard can it be? It's really hard. And it's something that like you have to like work really really hard to overcome what you're talking about, of like, okay, this is not a bass, this is not a guitar, like this is, even though there's similarities, it's like it's the skills are not transferable.
right.
Like as much as like going from acoustic guitar to electric guitar, this is like you really have to like override uh the things that you already know from being a good instrumentalist in these other ways. And that learning curve is really steep. And
Mhm.
so I do know with those instruments, like the feeling of like it doesn't it's not as easy to like, it's not as intuitive, and you have to really search for that. Like I need to really embody a cellist, like that. I need to really channel what it means to be a cello player, because it's not, I don't know, there's something about like drums, keys, guitar, like the staples of like rock music, that were far more intuitive to me, and I felt like, oh, as soon as I hop on the kit or pick up the bass or whatever, like the idiomatic language and the way that you move your body and the way that you like the ergonomics of it, and all the things that are specific to that instrument, they came way more naturally to me. And
Mhm.
then you step outside of that and it's like, I'm a fish out of water, and it's like, wait, this is so foreign, and my brain is broken trying to, you know, wrap my head around. It's a lot more, took a lot more effort and a lot more work.
Mhm.
But yeah,
W
no, I mean, it's always interesting hopping on a new instrument. But I'm very intentional about it because I find that I write better when I'm playing an instrument that I'm not good at. Like I have cooler ideas, because it forces
the
my brain to be
limitations, yeah.
forces my brain to be more like creative and problem solving than an instrument that I already know how to do. I'm like falling into habits and channels that are just like, and I have to work harder to like, okay, I'm not gonna do the thing that I always do. Um, and if it's a instrument that I am less comfortable with, like guitar is probably the instrument that I'm the least of the four: drums, bass, guitar, keys. Like I'm probably the worst at guitar, and I write my best songs on guitar because it's
Yeah,
the thing that I have to be the most creative when I'm playing.
man. Well, it's so interesting to hear you say all this because I would never know. Because every time you pick up an instrument, every time I see a clip or whatever, and you're playing all the instruments on it, that Christy Gnome thing was so fucking dope. I kept sharing that because I was like, this is so like even if like you don't politically align, like this is so fucking dope. But I thought it was hilarious and awesome. Um, but every time I see you play, it just you have that first of all, that Dilla thing, like you do that like nobody's business. Like one of the best, I think, that does that stuff. Um, but I also feel like I've seen you play like rock on a kit, and I'm like, God damn, man, like this dude like can just like chameleon into any situation. And maybe it's because the drums were your main thing growing up. When you went to Berkeley, were drums your primary instrument or were keys?
No, keys, piano for sure. Like when I
Damn.
was, yeah. And it's funny because at that point it was the instrument that I was playing the least, but it was the one that I like was the most intense and studious about. Like because I'd been playing drums since I was a kid, but I wasn't like, I didn't like shed excuse me, I didn't like grind the same way. It was just sort of like I did it for fun, and it was basically just like, I coasted on whatever I could just kind of pick up. I didn't like really push myself.
Right.
Um, and then when I was 14, I started playing guitar because drums was uh, cumbersome and loud, and nobody wanted to hear me play drums. And like there wasn't always a drum kit around, but there's always a guitar in the corner, and like it was just cooler with socially and girls and all that stuff. So like, it really was just sort of like, oh, if I can plunk out a couple riffs, I can impress a couple people.
Mhm.
That's what it started as. Because like drums, it was like I love playing drums, but like everyone tells me to shut up after 5 minutes. It's just like, all right, enough. Like,
Right. Mhm.
and with guitar, I just felt more like I could just do this whenever. No one's gonna tell me to shut up. In fact, people might actually like want me to. So then I started playing guitar, and I was like, wait, this is fun. I can do this too. And then I started playing bass because my stepdad was like, you kind of play guitar like a bass player. Like you should try playing bass. Then I started playing. I got into like hip hop. I got into jazz. I got into all sorts of stuff. This was all high school, and then I got into like playing piano. And so like 15, 16, and I was like, I'm gonna do this serious. Like took it really seriously. Got into like all the theory stuff, and like I just went all in, and I spent all my free time that I wasn't in school and doing homework. I was just like learning and shedding, and I took it just like academically really seriously. And I had to like catch up because I had 2 years before college. So for Berkeley, it was like you got to be able to read, you got to be able to do all these things. So I had to really just like grind for 2 years to like be able to get into Berkeley, and I did.
Mm,
I got a scholarship, and you know, did the thing. And so when I went to Berkeley, I piano was my major, jazz was my kind of thing. But I ended up being a film score major because a lot of my closest friends were in film at Emerson, and and that was exciting to me to like collaborate, outside of music. So
mhm.
yeah, so that was my Berkeley journey. It was like grinding for 2 years at piano as my principal, just getting really into jazz, and then expanding on that jazz vocabulary into film score. And I feel like being good at improvisation, have a good like jazz like understanding, allowed me to be a better composer because I just had more of I had a good like harmonic language to work with. I had a good impulse for, I mean, improvisation is just composing on
On
the
the
spot,
spot, yeah.
So
Mhm.
I felt like that was. I mean, John Williams was a jazz piano player. Like I think there's a synergy between jazz and composition, and so yeah, I think all of that served me pretty well.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Were you in the, Soul Live ensemble when you were there?
No, but I did do the Lettuce
Okay, I
band
I might
with
have saw you play that's where I think I saw you play for the first time, like, in the CAF or something.
yeah, yeah. I did
Um,
there was like a Lettuce calf show. Yep.
yeah, okay, 'cause then I remember right after that, maybe 3 years after that or so is when I found Watsky, and I was like, "Oh, shit, that's the dude that I think was in the Lettuce," or, like, or Soul Live, but at the time, I thought you were in that. So I was
Got
like,
you.
"Oh, that's the dude that was on that." Because I heard Cardboard Castles. Because I'm not a huge, like, I couldn't kinda go deep on hip hop with you in terms of, like, artists and albums and stuff like that, but I'm a fan.
Yeah.
But when I first heard his stuff and then you were involved and I was already a fan of yours, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be rad." And then I think that tumbled into me kinda keeping up with what you were doing, and then when Creature Comforts came out, I was like, "Oh, shit." And then I was like, "Oh, who's this Anderson .Paak dude? What the fuck?" And then now he's blown up, and I'm just like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, dude, like, this
Yeah.
guy." So, for the Boston connection, like, Watsky, he was at Emerson too, right? Like,
Mhm.
he was okay.
Yep.
So that's how you got to know him?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
My best friend from high school went to Emerson. And so we were, right down the street from each other. And so I was hanging out, I was going over there. Um, and uh, I didn't make a lot of friends at Berkeley. Most of my friends were at Emerson,
So funny.
and I found that I just fit in socially better over there, and yeah, George was in that squad. Like he was in those circles that I was hanging out in at Emerson, and we became good friends and started, making music. And yeah, it was really, and just kind of like I think I sent him one beat for his first album in 2009 when we were in I think it was like our junior year, and then we all moved out to LA together, and then we got busy,
Yeah, man.
got right to work and started cranking out material. And this was like, then he had that viral video, and that kind of opened a lot of doors, for our careers. So yeah,
Yeah, it's nuts, man.
yeah,
Well, talk to me a little bit about um, I can only imagine how complicated organizing a record like Creature Comforts is because of all the collaborations and all the artists you have to deal with.
yeah.
So, like, how long did that record take to make?
I started kind of collecting ideas for it in 2013. I think that was like I was like, all right, I want to make a record for myself. At this point, I was like, just producing for other people and putting out a record for myself was like a new frontier.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I just started collecting ideas and making little compositions and beats and this and that and writing melodies. And I wasn't really much of a songwriter. I'm still not, but at that time it was like I don't write lyrics. Like at that time I was like, that's not what I do. So this was like all very new. Like I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna dabble, you know. So I had these little ideas and little nuggets. So I would say probably a year, which is
Wow.
not a long time if you think
No.
about it. Yeah, like I think like it was like the summer of 2013 that I started to kind of like have intention around like I want to make my own album. And then it was released October 2014.
Yeah, dude, that's pretty quick.
Yeah,
Especially
and
with, all those tunes. I mean, there's a lot of tunes on that record, first and foremost.
yeah.
But then, organizing all the people. Did you have already in mind the list of like vocalists and stuff that you wanted to work with?
Yeah, pretty much. Like everything was pretty intentional. Like, I mean, I had a few people that I reached out to that didn't pan out. But those were kind of like Hail Marys. Everyone else was like, it was basically like everyone that I was homies with, like everyone that I was around and had access to. And it was at a time where everybody was like jumping on everyone else's shit, and I was
Mhm.
in those circles, and I was, it was just who was around and who's dope and who's the right fit for the track. I didn't like have like a crazy like wish list. It was just very practical. It was like I'm working on these tunes, and then like, oh, who could be on this? Like who's a phone call away? Like, oh, I can grab you and see if it's a vibe. And it was very scrappy. It was all done in bedrooms and garages, and you know what I mean? It was all just like
I love that.
working with what we got, with who's around. But now that you're kind of bringing it up, I'm like, damn, that was fast. Like like I have songs that I'm working on now that are like years old, and they're still a work in progress. It's like I don't know how the technology has gotten way better, but it songs are taking way longer to like come out. Like I mean, I made a whole record in less than a year. Because by the time I like was really working on Creature Comforts, it was probably like January, where I was like, okay, I have a blueprint of the album. I have like the general structure and the songs and the ideas, and I know what's going to be on it. And I was like in like production mode from like January to like May, and then mixing and mastering that summer, and then the release, that fall,
Mhm.
which is a wild timeline, like for an album, because and during that time I was working on I was helping George with All You Can Do, with
Yeah.
his album, and I was scoring movie, like I did a film score for a movie called This Isn't Funny. um I was doing a bunch of stuff. Like it wasn't like that was the only thing I was doing. So yeah, I don't know. Your 20s is a interesting time in your life, because like you just don't
Dude.
really have a lot else going on, and all you do is grind. It's like I was like not eating, not going to I wasn't going to the gym, I wasn't like taking care of myself. I was just, I'd roll out of bed, open up my laptop, and just like get to work and skip meals, and then go to a session, and then come home, work more, pass out, rinse and repeat. Like can't do that anymore. Now it's like I got, there's so many other things that you got to like tend to. So
Dude,
I
tell
think
me
I
about
think
it.
I think that plays a role into why you know that project and projects in your 20s just like can move at a faster pace, and things. I think as you get older, it's also, you just kind of like, you're more intentional with things, and you just have a little bit more patience, and there's less urgency that I think you feel when you're younger. I don't know. I'm just kind of talking out of my ass right now,
No,
but
dude, it's
you know,
true. I think especially when you're younger, it's the it's the mountain you must climb to make it, right? Like you hear about all these people like if you get into your 40s and you haven't made it yet, just give up kind of thing. So
Right,
you're
right.
just like hustling because you're just like this is the only way to do it. I just got to grind and grind and grind. Because if I don't do it now in my 20s, what's it going to be like in my 30s? And I think there's something to be said for that because it's a young man's game too. I mean, anytime I have gigs now and it's a late gig, it's like 9:30 to like 1. I am wrecked the next day.
Tell me
Wrecked.
about it.
And it sucks. And I miss being able to have that energy, but like I kind of like afternoon brewery gigs now, man. It's fun. Um,
Absolutely.
that's the thing. But you said mixing and mastering. Did you mix and master this too, or were you too close to it? Were your ears like, I can't do it? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I hadn't really picked up those skills yet. I didn't start mixing until, probably the last like 6 years or so.
Oh, okay.
Before I would always outsource. I had a homie, have a homie, Andrew Odell at Ghost Hit Records. Anybody watching, go hit him up. He's the best. Um, he was always mixing all of my stuff for the longest time, and uh, yeah, I think sometime around the pandemic, mixing was something that I wanted to be able to do. Like I didn't like feeling as a producer like, well, I don't mix. Like I can't mix. Like you know what I mean? Like that just didn't feel right. It was like I'm a
Mhm.
producer. I should be able to mix a record. So I started to just like mix all my own product. Before that, I subscribed to the I prefer someone else to mix so that you know there's another perspective and like you said, you're not too close to the project. Um, but I think also as the market changed and the landscape changed, uh, you know, in an ideal world, I think like there'd be enough work to go around for everyone that I could just produce and not have to mix, and clients would have enough money to like pay for both, and
Mhm.
and I think there's this squeeze happening where it's just kind of like you could kind of have to wear multiple hats in order to like make it all work, and um it's just not really realistic, especially with like indie clients being like, yeah, I'll produce it, and then you're gonna have to pay more for mixing. It's just like it's a sweeter deal if it's like all a one stop shop.
Right.
So it was a skill set that I picked up later. But for Creature Comforts, that was all my boy Andrew, who's he's got a studio in Western Massachusetts. Um, and he runs his operation, and um yeah, anyone out there, especially if you're in New England, definitely go check him out.
Man. Well, it's interesting because I've had so many people on this podcast talking about records and talking about working on records and producing records and mixing and mastering records. And I think about there's people that I listen to their music that I respect so much because of the approach, because of
Mm,
how you capture the sounds of instruments and the performances of the musicians and all that stuff, whether it's yourself or you're, captured in, a guitarist, whatever. Um, and I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but Murray Pulver. So Murray's a producer. He's in. Do you know him? See,
name sounds familiar.
do you know the brothers Landreth and Ariel Posen and those cats are Canadian musicians?
Yeah, definitely know. Well, I don't know him personally, but I'm aware of Ariel Posen.
So Murray usually when Ariel puts out those videos, the other guitarist is usually Murray Pulver, and he was in Crash Test Dummies back in the day, and now he's like up in Winnipeg or like producing records and stuff. And long story short, there's like several people that I would love to work with in a studio is like him, Blake Mills, obviously, and you, because of how I can imagine you're fun to work with in terms of like thinking outside the box to capture cool sounds. And that's what I loved about the Dolls record, We're All Gonna Die, because Blake
Mm,
Blake Mills produced it. And that was the first record I heard of Dawes. Like I didn't come in on North Hills and When My Time Comes. I came in on that. And when I spoke to Griffin Goldsmith when he was on here, and I told him that, he was like, "What? That was the first record that you got into Dawes?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it's probably because of how that you
Yeah.
could hear the fun that was captured. And I imagine that's how you work too. Am I somewhere in the ballpark?
I like to think so.
Mhm.
You know, that's a question for my clients.
Right.
um, yeah, I mean, and you know, everyone's got a different style and workflow, and I'm pretty adaptive to you know to people's kind of vibes. But yeah, if I have my druthers, it's a party and it's fun and it's experimental and it's weird, you know, and it,
Mhm.
you know, there's time to like focus and like really work out the puzzle of it and like take it seriously, and then there's times to like get weird and yeah, I definitely I think you're on the money in terms of like my I'm constantly searching for like what else can we do, what can we do here, what can we I don't settle for like the first idea. And it's a double-edged sword. One thing that I'm kind of trying to do more now is run with the first idea, and I'm trying to like be a little bit more like, less precious, less like critical, and more like, great, let's go. Like, like, don't overthink it. Let's just go, because I see that working for a lot of people and I
Mhm.
see it holding me back in a lot of ways. Um, but that being said, I definitely am like kind of like default state, if there's no pressure, is very exploratory. Like when I'm cooking up, if there's no pressure, no time pressure or anything, it's like hours before I even hit record. like like I might load up a loop or load up a just like a little something to kind of play off of, like either drum loop or a chord progression or whatever. And then I will just go through like every instrument and see, oh, what can I do on bass? What can I do on keys? What can I do? What can I make this sound like? How can I reimagine it this way? What if I metric modulate it this way? Like trying to come at it from all the different ways before I even decide on like, okay, what of all of those experiments, like what felt the most exciting to me. Um, and Yeah, yeah, like, I think that's, like, my default state is, like, just exploring and, like, trying things and, like, flipping things on its head and doing it backwards and doing it this way and, like, "What about this?" And, like, every idea spawns, like, 4 new ideas, and it's like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. What about this? Oh," and then, it's like eventually you kind of have to pick something, but it'll be hours before I settle on anything that feels good.
Mhm.
um and yeah, like I said, I'm trying, for the sake of capitalism, not to do that anymore because I gotta I like you know like I said earlier, like we're not in our 20s anymore, like I got bills to pay, and it that level of just indecisiveness and vibe exploring, it it slows everything down. So I have to be a little bit more, like, okay, we gotta deliver this.
Right.
We're making decisions. So yeah.
When you cut stuff for like if it's just you playing all the instruments, do you play to a click and do you start with the kit or do you start with like a more harmonic instrument?
Uh, Chicken and the egg. Depends on the song, and yeah, sometimes it's a kit, but sometimes it's. I mean, it depends on where the idea came from. Like, if the idea was like, oh, I was on my guitar and I noodled on this thing, I'll start with that. I'll put that down first as like the thing to anchor it and play off of, and then I'll hop on the kit and then like try to find the feel and be like, okay, what's the right pattern, for this like guitar part that I just came up with. So then I'll put that down, and then that'll be the new anchor. Then I'll get rid of the guitar, and then I'll start replaying the guitar, and it might be a couple rounds of that, of like chicken and the egg, until I find the right synergy between, the drums, or the, guitar, or like the keys and the bass, or whatever, like the first couple of combination of elements are. So it depends. It's not always the same thing. It's not always like a formula, but it is there is a level of like, I take whatever part inspired something, put that down in whatever form I can, and you know, uh, it might be scratch, it might end up in the final, I don't know. Um, but it's like kind of like my anchor. I throw things up against it and see how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
And then if a combination feels good, I keep going. If I put something sometimes I put something down and I like that better than the thing that initially sparked it. So then it's like, oh wait, this is even cooler. Then I get rid of the first thing, and now I'm building off the second thing, is like, that's like the cooler, like more exciting thing.
That's cool.
Um, so it just depends. It's like, it depends on the genre, depends on so many factors. But I would say it's always a bit of a chicken and the egg. Like, I'm very rarely like, this is what it has to be. Like, this is the song, and it's not. It's very rarely like formulaic, where I'm like, first I do this, then It's
Yeah.
usually like, oh, I had this idea, and this is a cool thing, and I can hear. Sometimes I can hear like four steps ahead of like, oh yeah, and the drums would do this, and the bass would do that. Sometimes I can't hear that at all, and I'm like, I don't know what I would do with this. This is just this weird pattern, or chord, or melody and chords. I don't know. And so it's a lot of just like, let me put this up against that and sit back and see what I feel. It's like, no, that combination's weird. I don't like that. Okay, let's swap that out for this. Oh wait, let's move this all over here. And it's just a lot of like,
Mm-hmm.
trial and error at
Puzzle
some point.
pieces.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I wanted to ask you this before we run out of time,
Yeah.
because you worked on Wax's record with Kraz?
Yeah, I did some production on that, and I mixed it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
with Higher and Routine, and those tracks.
Oh, dude, yeah, Higher is like one of my jams, man. I like to ride
Yeah,
around like town just cranking that in the summertime.
yeah,
So how do you first of all, how did you meet Wax? He's a Maryland boy, which is cool. He's been on here too.
yeah. Through George,
Oh, okay.
through Watsky. We did a tour together in 2013. Um, yeah. So I'd like met Wax a couple times before that. Well, I think in 2011 he opened or no, we might have opened for him in
Hmm.
2011. And then in 2013 we did a whole run together, and I was playing for both artists. I was playing in both bands, or I guess I should say both artists were sharing the same band.
Right.
Uh,
I think I
um,
might have saw so you guys came through. I came to see you guys when you came through Soundstage in Baltimore.
yep,
I was at that show. Um and I think my wife came with me actually, because we would listen to Cardboard Castles all the time, like in the house and stuff while we were cleaning. Um, but that was a great show, dude. And I don't know if that was the one. I can't remember. Was Wax on that one?
what ye-
I
what
have,
year?
dude. You got me, man. I don't know. Like
Yeah,
it could have been 2012 or 2011. I don't know. Like
if it
that's
was
when we moved
20
back
if
here.
it was
So,
2013, then Wax was there.
oh yeah, it was 2013. I do remember that because that's the year we moved into this house. And I'm pretty sure it was during that era, but I just remember that was like my first like hip hop show,
Yep.
and so fun. And then I have friends in town. There's a band called the Grilled Lincolns. Shout out to them. But every time Wax comes through and plays the 8x10 RIP,
Yep.
um, he usually has them open. And so last time he came through, they were like, "Hey man, you want to come play guitar with us, on the Wax show?" And I was like, "Sure, just send me a couple tunes." Um, and I went and played on that stage, and I have never played to a more energetic crowd. Like, hip hop crowds are no fucking joke, dude.
No, for real.
People were fucking, and I was just like, oh my god, this is friggin' great. Like, I've
Yeah.
never experienced this. Because I'm in a jam band. Everybody's making boxes and putting them away. So it's like, it's not the
Yeah.
same. It's just a
Yeah.
very different vibe. And
Yeah.
one of the coolest things I've ever experienced.
That's dope, dude. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
easily.
awesome.
Easily. But Kraz. So Kraz is probably in my top 3 heroes, guitar heroes. So
For sure.
talk to me about working with that dude.
He's cool, man. I mean, that project was pretty straightforward. He he and Wax had those songs for a minute, and they were just kind of like hemming and hawing, I think, for a while, and then Wax brought me on to kind of insert some life, I guess, into the project and get it across the finish line. And I added some things, kind of spruced it up, gave it a mix, and yeah, that was my role. Like I wasn't like at the ground floor with those songs. Like those songs were already, there were already demos, and then but they were just kind of sitting there for years, like they were like, yo, we gotta put this out, we gotta put this out. um and so yeah, that was when I came into the picture. It was like, okay, let's actually do this. And I just kind of gave it that final push. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, Kraz is the man. He was my, I looked up to him when I was in high school, like learning all these soul live songs. So he,
Yeah.
like being able to work on music with him is, that's like high school me's dream come true, right? You know what I mean? So
Dude, I mean, 100%. I get it. Like, I had Chris Barron from the Spin Doctors on here, and that's like one of my favorite bands from like middle school. And I was just
yep,
like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm talking to this dude. So I get it.
100%.
There's got to be a lot of that stuff that happens to you too now, where you're just like, what the fuck? Like, I can't believe I'm working on this.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's good. I mean, sometimes it's like you don't see it and until after, like, wait a minute, I just did something really cool. Like, when you're in
yeah,
it, you're just like, I gotta solve this problem, or there's like kind of a urgency to it, and you're not really taking a moment to appreciate it. But yeah,
that's awesome.
and also I think also like the it's a moving goalpost, right? Like it like you hit a milestone, and you're just kind of like, okay, what's next? Like, what's the next kind of
Right.
thing? So I definitely have that mentality of like, um, when I look back, I'm like, damn, I did some cool shit. When I
Hmm.
look forward, I'm like, I have a ways to go. You know what I mean? Like, so it just depends on which way you're facing.
That's a healthy perspective to have, man.
Yeah,
I think sometimes it's hard to appreciate things while you're in it too. And I'm trying so damn hard in my mid 40s now to be like, dude, stop wanting more, man. Like, just appreciate what's going on right now. Like, for real. Like, you have your health, you have your family, you get to play music like with your pals. And that's something that I
that's a
think,
beautiful thing, man.
yeah. And I think
Not
that's
not a lot of people
hard.
can say that.
Right. And it's hard to do that too. Like, and this from like I totally resonated with what you said earlier with like, I didn't have friends like at Berkeley because it's an interesting crowd because everybody's got an angle, right? So everybody's like, I've got my lane, I've got my lane, I've got my lane. And it's hard to kind of like find camaraderie unless you find a band, which I did. So like 3 guys where I was close with. But outside of that, it's hard to make friends sometimes in those environments.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a hard time with like the sizing up kind of thing of like how good are you? Like, what do you know? Who do you know? Like there's always
Right.
this sort of like, what stages have you been on? What projects are you working on? There was a lot of that energy, at least when I was at Berkeley. Um and I also think with Berkeley specifically, like that was like my first experience of like not being special because I did music,
Right.
like up
Mm.
until that point, it was like I was the music guy, because it's a rare thing to be really good at music, like in any,
Small town.
population. Yeah, small
Mhm.
town. It's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there were a lot of talented musicians in, where I'm from. I don't mean anybody watching this from who I grew up with is like, hey man, like we play
Well, I
music
know
too,
what you mean
bro.
though, but it's
But it
it's
was
different.
as like an identity. Like most, even kids who played music, it's like I feel like, that was one of the few things that I had to like have as like my identity through like, puberty at this time where you're like,
Right.
what the fuck is going on? Like, what is even life and who am I? And it's like, I'm so grateful to have had such clarity at that time. But then I go to college and it's like, yeah, dude, we're all the
Yeah, we all
superstars.
do that.
Yeah, it's like, and I'm like, oh,
Well, you know
well,
what's interesting about that though is I remember being in a guitar lab and sitting down and being like, "Oh, this is gonna be super fun. It's a great green lab and blah blah blah." Sit down and like 3 other like 18-year-olds. I was 28 when I went to Berkeley, so I was older.
right,
Just destroyed me. Like totally like these young kids were just like and I was like, "Oh god, I got to get
yeah,
better." So that like
yeah,
there's a part of it that's like, "Oh man, like this is motivation for me to be like, oh wow, like it's inspiring to be around people like this,
100%.
you know?"
It's yeah, it's interesting. It's like I think there's a balance of like you don't want to be the worst player in the room, you don't want to be the best player in the room. At least for me, like I like um being somewhere in the middle where there's people I can learn from, and then there's people that I can, help, not just in an altruistic sense, but also just like, you know, it sucks to be like constantly at the bottom of the barrel, and like it's just like very demoralizing after a while if you're just kind of like in circles where like you're not getting called back, and it's just kind of like you're really kind of struggling to keep up. And so I think the healthiest balance to like maintain, excitement and interest and passion and sustainability in like what you're doing is like, just not being like I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who are better than you for sure. Like that's like
100%.
super super important. So you're always striving, but like also take some wins for yourself, because I think if you're constantly just like feeling just like, oh, I suck, and it's just like, dude, like you're just, it's, I don't know, it's hard to remind yourself that like, you're just around like some elite players and elite, people and it's not, and it goes beyond just music. It's like whatever your craft is.
Right.
It can get tough to sustain that if you're just punching above your weight class like all the time. And it's good to be around people that are kind of closer in your, wherever you're at in your journey. And then and then balance that in with being pushed,
Yeah, and going in young and green and, like, being decent and then coming out super mature,
100%. Yeah.
That's, like, I
Yeah.
don't know, that's what I got out of it, but alright, so we've come to the end here, Kush. Let's
Yes,
do
sir.
the lightning round get down.
Let's
I'm gonna
do it.
put on a little, metronome for some suspense here.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm gonna ask you, 10 questions.
Okay.
So this or that type of thing. If you wanna explain your answers, feel free. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can burn right through it.
All right.
First one is always the same. Lennon or McCartney?
Lennon.
Worley or Rhodes?
Worley.
Otis Redding or Sam Cooke?
Sam Cooke.
East or West Coast?
West Coast.
P bass or J bass?
P bass.
Who's a musician that died too early that you wish was still making records?
So many. I'm just gonna say Kurt Cobain, but there's like 50 other ones.
Okay.
Arbitrarily, that was the first one that popped in my head.
It's a good one. Space travel or time travel?
Time travel.
Water balloon fight or water gun fight?
Water gun fight.
English muffin?
Filling up balloons takes too long.
That does. English muffins or bagels?
Mm, I love a good eggs Benny. English muffin.
Cool. And here's the last one.
Yeah.
If you could take one record
Yeah.
and erase it from your memory just so you can go back and experience it for the first time again, what album do you think that would be?
Probably Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay. Most requested on the show. That is the most answered, which makes total sense. Tell me why.
I think just sonically, it was so formative for me. I mean, my parents were Pink Floyd fans, and I have like very very fond memories of like early childhood, like listening to Pink.
Oh no, I lost you, Kush. His camera went out right in the middle of a heartfelt answer. Let's see if he can get back in here. I'm gonna pop his website up just so for people on YouTube. So Kush Mody, so KUSHMODY.com to find out more about what Kush does. And then his Instagram is Sneakers in the Pool. Sneakers, like the sneakers you wear in the pool where you swim. Definitely follow along with him. He's doing a lot of cool stuff, musically speaking, and he's just a good guy, obviously, as you saw here. But let's see if he comes back into the stream. Let's wait. We'll give it another minute or two. I bet you his battery died on his camera. Those cameras are finicky sometimes. Maybe he was on his phone. I don't know. Maybe his phone died. I don't quite know. But regardless, Kush Mody. What a dude. What a man. If you guys are interested in that record we were talking about, Creature Comforts, go listen to that. It's on all the streaming services. A bunch of really cool tunes, and Anderson .Paak is on like 3 or 4 songs on that. There's a song called Freight Train that is very Black Keys-esque, and it's got some angst to it. It's the one that I really like. And then there are a slew of other ones with like a bunch of great like George Watsky's on a song called Strangers, which is really good. What's another song that I love? Two of You is great. That's an awesome tune. There's so many good songs on this album, like one after the other. There he is. You got me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let's see what's going on here. Kush, can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me, buddy. You got me? I bet he's going to just log out and log back in, which is usually the button that you should push. When all else fails, the on-off button is the way to go. All right, let's see if he comes back in here. Just give it another minute. He obviously got his phone back up and running, or his camera back up and running. Oof, everybody, what a night last night. I'm exhausted, and I'm glad I had the energy to do this tonight because that was so much fun. Let's see here. He should pop in here in a second. We'll get him back. Sneakers in the Pool. Thanks, BV. All right, here he is. You got me, buddy?
We're back. Damn, I don't know what the hell happened. That just your sound just was I coming through?
No, but that's okay. I just promoted the hell out of that record, Creature Comforts, and talked a lot about a couple of the songs that I love. So
okay, amazing.
I told everybody to go listen to that. So anyway, Dark Side of the Moon. Grew up listening with your parents, and that's the last thing I heard.
Yeah, that's basically it. It just has a familial element to it that feels really good, and sonically, it's just second to none. So
yeah, dude, that clip of the live in Pompeii gig keeps popping up in Instagram. What song is that? Like the boom, boom,
it's like yeah, I don't remember. I gotta look it up, but I think it's from one of their, I think it's from before Dark Side, but I can't remember exactly.
That groove is ridiculous. It's
It's
so
so
good.
good.
Oh God.
I never skip it
No.
when I see it pop up on Instagram.
Yeah, me too. So, Kush, anything to promote? Like, do you got any scores coming out? Any movies that you're scoring right now or anything
No
that you can talk
scores.
about?
Yeah, no scores at the moment. I'm the yeah, the main thing to promote is my band Feed the Birds. I We have a ton of music out. So go stream that. It runs the gamut from pop to acoustic kind of singer-songwriter vibes to there's like rock stuff, there's like, you know, R&B, lots of R&B. Um and besides that, I'm just working on all sorts of independent artists music. People hit me up all the time. If you're an independent artist and want to work, that's what I do. I just want to make records. I want to mix and help people realize their vision. So
Awesome.
hit me up,
Awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for hanging out, buddy. It was such a pleasure to talk to you
dude.
and like hear your
This was
story.
fucking awesome. Super appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Hold on one second, buddy. Everybody else, take care of yourself, take care of each other. We'll see you next time.